And I saw that all toil and all achievement spring from one presence envy of another. The two is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Fools fold their hands and ruin themselves. Better one handful with tranquility than two handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind. Again, I saw something meaningless under the sun. There was a man all alone. He had neither son nor brother. There was no end to his toil. Yet his eyes were not content with his wealth. For whom I am toiling, he asked, and why am I depriving myself of enjoyment? This too is meaningless, a miserable business. Ecclesiastes 4:4-8. This is the word of the Lord.
Good morning, Grace Place family. We are so glad you're here today to share with us. Well, when I was 19 years old, I got some really good advice from an elder minister for my future in ministry. And he said, Alan, if you never want to run out of material for speaking, just talk about your weaknesses. It's endless, the material that you can have. That gives you a little background on where I get sermon material, right? I want to talk to you this morning about what we have been leading up to, even in the ministry moment, talking about the comparison trap. The comparison trap is something that all of us can fall into so very easily. And I remember the first time I kind of noticed this was happening to me. I was 8 years old, and I could run really fast. At least I thought I could. And I would be running down the road, as fast as I can, wind blowing in my hair. You can imagine more hair. And I would just, faster than a speeding bullet, just a jet, just a blaze of glory, just, down the road. And I was certain that I would probably be selected to be, when I got old enough, the tailback for the Dallas Cowboys. I would be running for touchdowns and all of that kind of stuff. One day after school on my way home, a girl who lived in my neighborhood, Judy, she wanted to race me. And I'm thinking, pitiful girl, thinking, well, I don't want to embarrass her. I actually considered giving her a head start. But then I thought, we should just start even. I should just go ahead and let her be shamed early on in life. And so we got on our marks. In our heads, we heard the gun sound, and I took off, a blaze of speed, just running as fast as I could. And when I looked beside me, she was right there beside me. And so I decided I would turn the jets on, and I turned the jets on, and she was still right beside me. And then she passed me and finished first, got home first. I really hate Judy. She destroyed my dreams of becoming, a track star like Robert Hayes of the Dallas Cowboy. Bob Hayes was the fastest human at that time, according to the Olympics. And so my Olympic dream was gone, and my Cowboys tailback running dream was all gone in the same day. Thank you, Judy, for ruining my life. But I started realizing, even as I got into middle school, I realized that this was not just my problem, but it is a problem that we all share together, isn't it? This comparison problem. And I started realizing that all of us want to live in the land of right? Now you may be thinking about it biblically when, Abraham lived in the land of but we're talking about a different kind of here. We are talking about how we want to be rich right? We want to be skinny We want to be smart We don't just want to be tall, we want to be tall. There you go, you're joining in. Feel free at any moment to wake up. You want to be pretty, all right? You want to be happy. You want to be hip, right? And you want to be talented. All of us do, right? That's what's going on with us. And, we say, I just want more than you, okay? I'm not satisfied with the amount of I have. I want more than you. And that's really part of the problem with the comparison trap, isn't it? That we all want a little more than the people around us. Now, I just want to be able to go home at night and say, yeah, they were good. They really were good, but I'm right? You know, I mean, I'll admit it. They really are good. That wasn't bad at all. But I've got right? And then you get married, you know, and you have kids, and you want your wife to have some more right? You want your wife to be pretty and you know, then you want your kids to have more right? So we start pressing our kids a little bit. We want them to be athletic. There you go. Join in anytime. We want our son to be handsome, right? And we want them to be stylish than everybody else on the campus. And of course, intelligent than the rest of the class. So we start pressing them because by comparison, obviously, we have to be doing better. We need some more And you know, when we realize that there are people around us who have less this is where it kind of gets really ugly. And I almost didn't want to share this with you this morning because it's very revealing about me. It's very revealing about us. And so I thought about just leaving it completely out, but God said put it in. So I did. And here's what happens. We start looking around and we see people with less, you know, than us or not like us. And we start saying things like, you know, isn't he a little heavy? Yeah. You know, isn't you know, I think their kids are a little slow. Yeah. And, you know, I noticed they were short. And, you know, they're this family, you can tell they're a little poor. And I'm nerdy, but they are nerdy. Yeah. Where does that come from? Isn't that ugly? That's like we don't want to really see that side of us. But it's the places that we applaud when we think we have more than somebody else. And it really is very ugly. And we all feel a little poorer for having gone through exercise. But it doesn't stop us because ultimately we're doing this because we want to feel superior, right, than everybody else around us. And in the end, we look to our left and there are people with, you know, more and we look to our right and there are people with less and we suddenly realize we're spiritually poorer for having gone through the exercise in the first place of trying to compare ourselves. And then there are people that maybe you've graduated from the land of and you want to live in the land of Est. Have you heard of the people that want to live in the land of Est? You know, they don't want to be rich they want to be rich. Yeah, join right in there. They want to be rich. Yes, they want to be smart. They want to be happy. Right? They want to be healthy and retweeted. Yes. That's the most important one in the age of social media. Most retweeted. You know, count your likes, name them one by one. Count your likes, see what people have done. Count your likes, name them one by one. Count your many likes, see what people have said. Yeah. And then I think that we, as George Bush would say, we misunderestimate. We misunderestimate what's really going on inside of us. And that is that we're lying to ourselves, really, when we're telling ourselves that, hey, I'm just trying to reach my full potential. Go to the self-help books and stuff. I want my wife to reach her full potential. I want my husband to reach his full potential. I want my kids to reach their full potential. I want them to have more. I want them to be est, right? Or maybe there are some that are here today that are like Amanda was talking about a moment ago, where you're the flip side of this. And for you, it is, I will never be as fill in the blank, right? As someone else. I will never be as fill in the blank as someone else. I will never measure up. My kids are never going to get into those schools. I'm not going to ever be as brilliant as they are, as creative as they are. I probably will never have a career like they have, and it really hurts me to think about that when I compare what's going on with them and what's going on with me, and I realize I'm never getting there, and I'd like to get there, but I just can't, and maybe that's where you're at. And so As we launch into what God has to say about this, I'm going to leave you with our sticky statement for the day, okay? And here it is. Nobody wins when we compare our lives. Nobody wins when we compare our lives. The whole process is not only a waste of energy, but it is probably destroying our peace of mind. It is destroying us financially. It's doing a lot of damage, and we're going to go through this. Solomon, the wisest man ever, is going to help us get a good picture of this, and we can see what's going on. We're working sometimes continuously to try to keep up and to live an impossible image. We're substituting criticism for love. I'm just trying to help you be the very best that you can be, and that's why I'm getting on to you. You know, average is the best of the worst and the worst of the best, and so, I just want you not to be average. I want you to have some more Really like you to have est. And so Solomon says, and this was not a part of our reading this morning, but earlier, before he says what we had in our reading this morning in Proverbs, he said, envy rots the bones. Envy rots the bones. I asked you this past week to join in with me as we were preparing for this message on, what you thought was bad about comparison, and many of you chimed in and had some excellent observations, and this was kind of the root of it, how envy really rots the bones. There's no good in this process. Nobody wins when we are comparing. So he's saying that comparison stuff is dangerous to you. It's not just something that we think is just a bad habit that we need to break, but this is destructive. It is destructive to your lives. And in our reading today, beginning in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 3, Solomon said, "And I saw that all toil and all achievement spring from one person's envy of another." Solomon said that what he saw, the thing that he saw that was driving people forward often was competition. And Solomon said this over 3,000 years ago, right? You think things have changed significantly today? We're still being driven by comparison, we're still being driven, by trying to keep up with the people all around us. We're still being driven by competition. He saw that people were determining where they were based on where everyone else was. They were trying to figure out, how am I doing in life? And the best way for me to do that is to look around and see how you're doing in life and compare myself. I have more than you. I have a little less than you. I need to keep working on this, and I am est when I'm around you, right? I heard Barbara Bush say years ago, she was doing a public speech, and Michelle and I were there, and she said, I found out, and this is the senior, the mom, she's probably, in her 90s now? She says, I've found out how to look skinnier and prettier. She said, I hang out with people that are older and fatter, right? Solomon was saying that what he saw in people was that they were determining where they were and if they were okay based on how they were measuring themselves up with their neighbors. I'm only okay if I measure up to how my neighbors are. And then he goes on to say this. He said, this too is meaningless. He says, a chasing after the wind. A chasing after the wind when we are involved in this process. We can't catch up with the wind. We can't put it in a bottle. We can't keep it in our pocket. He's saying this is a very futile exercise, almost trying to say, why are you wasting good energy trying to do something that is impossible? Why are you chasing after something you're never going to catch and you're never going to get? And so in light of understanding that, like if I told you that it was just an impossible task, then, what should you do? Just fold your hands and get discouraged and say, this is just what I am in life, and it's never going to get any better. Solomon goes on to say, fools fold their hands and ruin themselves. No, he says, don't sit idly by and let life happen. Don't compare. Don't sit idly by and let life happen to you. He says, here's what I want you to do. Better one handful with tranquility than two handfuls toil, and chasing after the wind. Now, the Hebrew imagery here is so beautiful. It's a picture of a man with an open hand to allow, and a picture of a man with two closed hands. And the open hand in Hebrew imagery was about, the example was God putting in and God taking out as he needed and doing what he needed to do, but the hand was always open to what God wanted to put inside or what God wanted to take away. One hand always open. It's better to have one hand open where God can put in and God can take out than to have two hands closed with all your might trying to hang on to whatever you think you have or whatever you think will sustain you and take you to the next level. God says we don't live that way. And Jesus said it in the New Testament, man doesn't live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. He said, I'm going to teach you a new way to live. I'm going to teach you a new way to walk, but you're going to have to open the closed hands. And you're going to have to constantly keep one hand open in front of me. Better is that one hand with tranquility than two hands trying to hold on and hope that everything stays the way it is at this moment. No need to look to the right when you're living like this. There's no need to look to the left. You can be satisfied because if you want to know what you have, you just need to look in your one open hand. The tranquility. I have relationship. I have life. I have a relationship with God, the provider, who's always going to take care of me. And there is no need for me to look left or to look right and see what's going on. And then Solomon goes on to say, again, I saw something meaningless under the sun. There was a man all alone. He had neither son nor brother. I've highlighted that son nor brother because it's significant in that time period. What he's basically saying is, I've been working really hard. I built up a lot of stuff, but I have nobody to leave it to, because in that day, you didn't leave possessions and things to women. You left them to men. And he said, I have no son and I have no brother. Probably his family was gone as well, his mother and father. And so he's saying, I'm working, I'm toiling, and I built up some stuff. I don't even have anybody to pass it along to. And so then he goes on to say, there was no need, no end to his toil, and yet his eyes were not content with his wealth. For whom, he says, am I toiling? For whom am I toiling, he asks. And why am I depriving myself of enjoyment? He's beginning to really examine where he is, and he's saying, who am I doing all of these things for, and why am I depriving myself of the enjoyment of life, of the enjoying family, of enjoying friendship, of enjoying my faith, because I'm so busy toiling away, and yet, I don't even have anyone to pass this along to. He goes on to say, this too is meaningless, a miserable business. Can I ask you a question this morning? What business are you in? Well, I am in the business of misery. I do things for no apparent reason. And it really makes me miserable, and I'm going to continue to do them this way. I'm going to circle this mountain one more time. There is absolutely no win in comparison. For those who are saying, I need more than somebody else, we are putting our trust in something other than God. Better is one hand with tranquility than two hands that are clenched, trying to hold on. What if we lived a life that learned how to open that one hand to God rather than to have closed hands? What could God do with us if we always had that open hand and we were available to be used by God so that he could put in, so that he could take out? It's the early promise to Abraham. He said, Abraham, I'm going to really bless you. I'm going to take care of you. You need to trust me. I'm going to do this. But all the rest of the nations are going to be blessed through you. So I need you to keep that hand open. Because if you close that hand, the big work that I want to do won't happen, and I also won't get to put anything else in. I want to continue to bless. I want to continue to do a great thing in your heart and in your life. But what I really need you to do is to maintain that open hand. What is your mirror saying or determining about you? What's it saying? What are you looking at when you are trying to figure out if you're okay? Eyes up here for just a moment. I want to talk to you. I'm talking about here not being less productive. Now, some of you, when we said, you need to have one hand open with tranquility, here's what happened. The imagery immediately that came into your mind. A Buddhist temple garden and a bunch of monks sitting around going, hum. One hand in tranquility. Ah, yes, that's what I need. And that's not what we're talking about, right? There's a mission, there's work, there's a function God wants to perform through you that can't come through anyone else. You are individually and uniquely you that God wants to use. That one hand open is a picture of a person who is engaged actively in God's business, and they're too busy to look to the left, too busy to look to the right, because God is continuously putting things in, taking things out, directing their lives, leading and guiding them. This is not about sitting around in a peaceful place humming, okay? And I don't want you to get that picture. Solomon did all right for himself, didn't he? Yeah, he had enough gold that he could retire the debt for the United States, didn't he? Jesus was living this out for us, and he did all right, right? I mean, 2,000 years later, we're talking about him. I don't think you'll be talking about me in 2,000 years. I'd like that if you are around. Just talk about me. Just mention something. But I doubt anyone's going to be talking about me or remembering me in 2,000 years. And they do Jesus, so that's what we're talking about. I don't think they were, getting the picture of sitting around doing nothing, but actively engaging in the Father's business is what Jesus said he was doing. I'm doing my Father's business. I'm too busy to look over here and see what you're doing and how you're doing. I'm engaged in my Father's business. I'm obeying him and following him. I'm closing. I'm inviting the worship team. There are 4 hard questions. And I know you're going to hate me for this, and at the end of this, you're probably going to say, man, there are at least 2 of those questions I wish you hadn't asked. But I need to trouble your spirit a little bit this morning, and here they are. Are you ready? 4 hard questions. The first one, whose will are you doing? Jesus said, I'm doing the Father's business. Whose will are you doing? You might want to just go home and take a look at the checkbook, kind of see where everything's going, what's being invested in, Take a look at the closet, upstairs, downstairs if you have it. Check the backyard, the front yard. Whose business am I engaged in? What am I doing? Second question, are you going broke trying to keep up with fill in the blank? Are you going broke trying to keep in with fill in the blank? The Joneses, the Smiths, the Guerreros? Who are we trying to keep up with, What are we doing that is trying to keep up with somebody else? Are we identifying our families by other people? You need to have more you need to have more est. Or are we uniquely satisfied with who we are as individuals and who God created us to be, and all we're trying to be is open-handed before God and all that God has called us to be? Third question, are you enjoying your children, or are you driving your children towards unrealistic expectations? Are you enjoying them? Enjoying the relationship? Are you driving them towards some unrealistic expectations? I sat in a meeting this past week, and it wasn't with ministers and pastors, so it kind of shocked me. It was more of a secular meeting when the group leader said this, and she was leading the meeting, and she said, when we were setting goals, and we realized that in our family we needed to put spiritual goals first. And she said, we decided, we carved out that we're going to go to weekend church, and we're making that a commitment in our family. And she said, what struck me was, what brought me to this point was, everybody's busy in life, and she said, there is one night for 4 hours that all of our family is in the same room at the same time, one night. And I started realizing that if we don't make some changes in our lives, that what we value spiritually, our kids are not going to value. And if we don't make these adjustments and these changes, then they're gonna value whatever we're valuing, whatever we're putting an emphasis on. And she said, so we did this. And she said, I'm not trying to tell you to be spiritual or not be spiritual or whatever, but this is just for us. This is what happened. I just wanted to share that with you, that we felt like spiritual, as your goal setting, needed to be at the top of this. I kind of wish I had my video running. I was like, that's really, really powerful stuff. So, are we enjoying our kids? Are we driving them? Last question for you. You cannot be a follower of Jesus, and chase the wind at the same time. So the last question is, are there people around you that you would secretly enjoy seeing fail? It's like, man, everything is just so going right for those people. If they tripped, I wouldn't laugh out loud. But if their kids didn't get in that school, I would go, I'm really sorry to hear that. Yes. Right? What is wrong with us, What is wrong with us that we would arrive at a place like that? Wounds the heart of God when we are following after him and putting his name on us, and we are responding that way. There's nobody that wins in comparison. Nobody does. We can open our hands before God. And would you just do that this morning? Just open one hand before God. And I'm going to pray over you before the worship team comes while you're still seated. It's all right. Father, you can put in this hand and you can take out whatever you want. We want to live in tranquility with you, at peace. We don't want to be chasing after the wind. As Solomon said, it's a fruitless kind of thing. We don't want to be involved in the comparison trap. Deliver us from that and that mindset today. We want the best for everyone around us, but we're going to be zeroed in on what you've called us to do and to do the Father's will. And we're going to thank you for that in Jesus' name. Amen. Would you stand with me as the worship team comes?